Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get this started as we noted we wanted to start at 7 sharply with a welcome and some introductory remarks. And I'm going to ask the Director of International Education here at the college, Ambassador Eugene Pursuit, to bring her welcome and the introductory remarks. Ambassador Pursuit.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Dr. Ivelaw Lloyd, President of this college, member of this college, on behalf of the Provost, Dr. Augustine Okereke, on behalf of my good friend here, Dean Terrence Blackman, and all the hard-working people at member of this college, it is my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you here to this intimate conversation with our guest of honor. I am particularly pleased to welcome some people that I see in the audience here. I wish I knew everyone, but I don't. I want to say a special welcome to the Guyanese Consul General who's sitting there. Madam, welcome. I heard Terrence refer to a lady as Madam President. I don't know what you're president of. I welcome you in your capacity as president. Folks, let me say this, that it really is an honor for me to welcome Vice Chancellor Ivelaw Griffith here today. And I'll tell you why. There's two reasons why. Sometime around 1998, the United Nations and the World Bank came out with a report on crime in the Caribbean. And I was astounded to see that two Caribbean countries were leading the world in per capita crime. It was Trinidad, #1, and Jamaica, #3. I decided that I'd like to do something about it by organizing a conference to look into this whole issue of crime in the Caribbean. I made it clear that I didn't want a police convention. It was not about locking up people and putting them in jail. It was about trying to understand the sociology of crime in our region. There's a region of the world that is supposedly idyllic, climate, the environment, everything is ideal for relaxation and a good life. And yet we are leading the world in crime. I wanted to get to the bottom of that. I decided to organize a preparatory workshop and do it in the form of a breakfast. I decided to invite the provost of York College on a long shot, because I really didn't know if he would accept my invitation for just a breakfast meeting. And lo and behold, who was there? Prompt and sitting with us as if he was one of the boys. It was Dr. Ivelaw Griffith. I could never forget that morning, not only the contents of what you shared with us, but the way you interacted with us as if it was no big deal for you to leave your college and come here and share with us. I really appreciate that. And it's one of those things that's stuck in my memory. Thank you very much. I also want to recall, and I hope that every one of you here who are Guyanese would accept that with a degree of pride. Last April, the President, myself, and Dr. Maria de Longoria visited Guyana. And on our itinerary was a welcome dinner by the Vice Chancellor. And ladies and gentlemen, let me say this to you, it was a dinner. It was a dinner. It was first class all the way. All the way. And, you know, the Vice Chancellor don't know how to do anything if it's not first class. And so again, Mr. Vice Chancellor, I want to say thank you very much for creating this great impressions in my mind. It has enriched me as a person. And so in my humble way, I'm just thrilled to be able to stand here and welcome you to have this chat with us here this evening. Thank you very much for being here. Welcome to Medgar Scott.
Thank you, Ambassador Pursuit. It's important when you have these things, to say who the folks are. Sometimes we hear the anecdotes, but we don't often say it. And so I thought I'd first, in introducing our guest this evening, Professor Ivelaw Lloyd Griffith, I would say just a little bit about his bio, and I sort of added this to our program, but nonetheless, I think it's important to sort of read it into the record, so to speak. Professor Ivelaw Lloyd Griffith was appointed the 10th Principal and Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana in June 2016, having served earlier as Executive in Residence at the University of Albany State of New York College, and the 9th President of Fort Valley State University in Georgia, where he sort of led the right-sizing of the educational economic enterprise, focusing on growing enrollment, enhancing the academic profile, controlling spending, launching honors and undergraduate research programs, and initiating a feasibility study to establish a school of entrepreneurship and business innovation. Professor Griffith is a tenured professor of political science, and he served from 2007 to 2013 as provost and senior vice president at York College in New York, where notable achievements included growing the full-time faculty by 30%, reorganizing academic affairs into schools of business and information systems, arts and sciences, and health sciences and professional programs, and enhancing research and scholarship by creating the provost lectures, the distinguished scholars lectures, and the undergraduate research program. Professor Griffith is a University of Guyana alumnus. He was the first person to graduate with distinction in political science. He holds a Master's of Arts from Long Island University here in New York, and both a Master's of Philosophy and a doctoral degree in political science from the City University of New York. He is also a graduate of the Harvard Graduate School of Education Program in Educational Leadership, and this is part of what we want to talk with him tonight about. And he's also a graduate of the Millennium Leadership Institute of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities. Professor Griffith is an expert on Caribbean and hemispheric security, drugs and crime. He is the originator of the concept of geonarcotics, which emerged in the early 1990s as a way to study the complex relationships between drugs, geography, power, and politics. And it was first outlined in Canada's leading international affairs scholarly magazine, From Cold War Geopolitics to the Post-Cold War Geonarcotics. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome to us Professor Ivelaw Lloyd. Our format we'll ask Professor Griffith to speak for about 15 minutes or so, and then we will sit down and continue that conversation. So he'll set the stage for us, and then we'll complete that conversation. So, please, Professor Griffith.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've got a first request, and that is to ask everyone in the back row to come forward. Find a seat close to the front. Everyone escape before the whole thing comes. I used to say to students when I taught here regularly in the US that too many of our folks struggle to find a seat in front. Why do we want to sit in the back when we have an opportunity to sit in front? I want to begin by thanking and applauding Dean Blackman, as well as a colleague from the Alumni and Friends of the University of Guyana, for not only organizing the session, but for also having some healthy fruit and other things to go with it. The last time I was in this room, 2 years ago, we we had the opportunity of having someone present who is no longer here. And I'd like to invite you to stand in honor for a moment of silence for George Irish, who passed not too long. Thank you. I was skipping a few years ago, I think the first time we had the Renaissance weekend, and George was very much present. George was one of the people who, along with others in the room, instigated my candidacy for president of this college. And I was a finalist along with Billy Cruz. I was like, don't be later on, you gotta be president. I took the job in Georgia first, but it's low division. In 2.5 months, it's going to be 3 years since I returned to Guyana after 35.5 years in the U.S. To start a journey of helping to contribute to an indispensable part of our nation's development. And that is the University of Guyana's Renaissance. That journey has been an interesting one, a troubled one in many respects. But it's not a journey that I could have endured without the support, prayers, and hard work of people in this room and not in this room. So I want to begin by thanking my wife, who is absent, for the strong support, and my family, thanking people who are in this room, close friends of many decades, people who have been laboring in the vineyards in helping us to do the things behind the scenes to make a success of the pursuits of Team Renaissance in Guyana. It was often said that nations are at crossroads, and sometimes that term is used very flippantly. But our nation is surely at a crossroads. It's a crossroads in economic terms, it's a crossroads in political terms, it's at a crossroads in sociological terms. The nation that many of us grew up in is no longer the nation in sociological terms that we knew. Work ethic is something that has had a great abandon. I was saying to someone 2 weeks ago in Houston, Guyanese, said that if I got you, even if it's only 100 Guyana dollars, every time I heard the term, Vice Chancellor, this is not America, it's only Guyana. There's been such a proclamation to mediocrity, a comfort with doing things below excellence, that you see the sociological veneer of excellence that we grew up with, and still be that veneer. And so the journey that I've been on is a journey in very many respects that are not only education at the university, but education in a broader sense, in helping the society to understand that a university that they've been accustomed to the last several decades is not the University of Guyana deserves. We need to go beyond being what has been described aptly by many as simply a glorified high school. We need to go beyond a place where you can just do teaching, but you can do research. Go beyond a place where it is not only an emphasis in what you can get, but what you can give. Have a university that prides itself not only in platitudinous terms, but in practical terms by putting students front and center. Colleagues, my first day on the job as Vice Chancellor, I was struck by the neglect and the disrespect of students with regard to something that is so fundamental and elementary, like turning your grades in on time. It is still a battle. But if we don't pursue the journey to make right those things that we have long taken for granted, but have fallen by the wayside to the point where you think, now, I am doing something revolutionary. I'm saying let's get the basics taken care of. Teach the students. Teach them well. Turn their grades in. is that journey where you take for granted by virtue of being away for a while, and now you've got to manage not only standards, but in standards and things that are so elementary. You would think it is a battle we should not have to fight. But I want to say that there are several points of pride along the way. I think when you will have looked at the 2.5 years, actually 33 months of the Project Renaissance, there is much for which we have to be proud. Part of what the journey is all about is not only a journey that will lead to certain product enhancement of outcomes, but a journey where process is as much as important as a product. It's a cultural shift in many respects. We have been so adrift from the centerpiece of what excellence and standards have been that getting process is just as important as a product. But if you want to identify a couple of tangible outcomes of the journey's pursuits, I brought a few copies, and I'm delighted to see that, you know, they say great minds think alike.
Yeah, well,
But they always say food seldom different. You know, that's in the foods category. We decided to put together a little, we don't have enough for everyone, a little brochure that's capturing some of the physical enhancements in the last 33 months. Makes a difference. Simple things that you would take for granted. I remember going to school at the University of the 70s. The single largest lecture hall, what is now called the George Walker Lecture Theatre, used to be hot all the time. And with global warming, it is even hotter. So I decided to air condition the whole facility. People think that I'm inventing something new. It is such a fundamental, simple thing to create a comfort in your largest classroom space and give it also this small lecture theatre. So some things which are captured here as points of pride should not be a point of pride in the 21st century, but it's a manifestation of the extent to which the neglect has been so significant. Dr. Cambridge, a good friend of many of ours, was home last year, and he was noticing my year one scorecard of things some of which should not be points of pride. Like not having horses and sheep roam the campus. Like not having so many stray dogs around. Simple things that would enable the climate, the ambiance for learning. A good friend of mine was also our distinguished artist in residence, Dave Martins, posted a Facebook message saying, I've got to ask the Vice Chancellor how he can get the road at UG paved. I've been trying to get my road paved for a long time. Paving the road, creating a car park, creating the facilities that will make life for students and their staff useful and worthy of long to come here. So I'm delighted that we've been able to significantly make a difference. We've not been able to solve all the problems, and some of the problems are not available to quick fixes. It's going to take a journey. It's not a sprint. But I'm delighted that people in this room, people not in this room, people in the diaspora at large, have been contributing to that journey in so many ways that you will not believe. I've often used something that's simple as an example of how the diaspora is contributing to what the Renaissance journey is all about. And I've used Karen Wharton as a reference. You would see sometimes public announcements from the Department of Public Relations. That Department of Public Relations is Karen Wharton. In the diaspora, knowing what our limitations are to PR, say, look, I will do the marketing. And so the point I'm trying to make is that the value and the contribution of people in Guyana and out of Guyana is something that I take as a point of pride and want to thank colleagues for giving collectively today. One of the sociological realities of our society also, and it's not unique to Guyana, is that our nation still has a love-hate relationship with the diaspora. And I've experienced that love-hate relationship in some very personal ways. Not only being told I'm not a real Guyanese, but also being told that I'm trying to impose too many American values. And I said, I am just as Guyanese as you. And there is nothing wrong with having standards. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being not comfortable with mediocrity. And so I want to express my appreciation to colleagues in the diaspora. The entire diaspora, not just North America. We've got lots of Guyanese and non-Guyanese who helped us in significant ways behind the scenes. I was just talking to Eugene, not Eugene, New Zealand. We had a wonderful visit a couple of weeks ago from the Deputy Minister of Natural Resources in South Africa, Mr. Ivelaw. His coming to us is a function of someone in the diaspora, albeit in the diplomatic corps. Kenrick Hunt. Kenrick was home for Christmas, came to my party, and he's been working behind the scenes to to position us. So when Kenrick heard there was a team coming to Guyana, we, behind the scenes, ensured that there was a visit to the university to find out how can South Africa, in the area of mining, help us. We have a fledgling Department of Geological and Petroleum and Geological Engineering, significant to which is our mining program that is new. And so we'll be getting assistance from the South Africans in helping to show that. The point I'm trying to make, colleagues, is that sometimes you don't see the manifest contribution. It's behind the scenes. It's not product, it's process. But I value all those contributions, no matter how small they are, or how big they are. I'll end on this note because we want to make it a conversation. Some of the contributions are personal and enabling me to be away from the family and do things and not have the family neglected. And I want to single out someone who is not here and someone who is here at that very personal level, in helping to make the Griffith family life be a life that is not one of sad and regret. That is Leslie Stewart. And Leland Walcott, who at a very personal level helped to be sure that things in the family home can happen, even though I'm not there when there are emergencies. So there are various levels at which people have been helping me and helping our nation, and helping our university in ways in which you don't have to make a big singing song about it, but I value those contributions, individual, institutional, personal, and so on. You'll see in that list of achievements in the scorecard, year one, something that was a signally important project of mine in my first year, to regain the accreditation of that School of Medicine. We were able to do it. We now have a 4-year accreditation. We're going back up in 2021. And that for me is a signal point of pride in being able to get the flagship program of our university back on track. We have a challenge with that, in that not only is the entire university portfolio of programs way beyond the economic cost of the event, but the medicine, the dentistry, the optometry, those allied health in particular, they cost much more to run than we're charging students. So we're going to have to make some tough decisions going forward, not only to right size our programmatic offerings generally, but to significantly increase the tuition. And the significant increase in that tuition is something that students understand. Because there are non-accredited medical schools in Guyana charging 4 times more than what we charge. For a number of reasons, historic and political, there's been a reluctance to have that differential tuition in a way in which we can have some cost efficiency. But we're going to have to go there. We're going to have to go there with medicine. We're going to have to go there with dentistry, with optometry, with nursing, with public health, with law. Because it's just not economical to keep subsidizing the programs in a way in which, given the overall thrust of things, it is no longer a tenable proposition to do. I'll end on this note. The journey has just begun. Process and product that we intend to enable the university and to enable the university to benefit the society will take more than 3 years. And so I have been very thankful for my wife's support in allowing me to say to the university community, I shall be seeking a new contract. Now, some of you have been following the news recently already know that some people don't want me to be there for another 3 years. But I said, let's see what happens. People want salary increase without performance. People want salary increase without doing their jobs. And I say, salary increase is important. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. You've got to look at continuous improvement. The University of Guyana and the unions at the University of Guyana have not had a collective labor agreement since 1994. How can you in 2019 operate on the basis of just guesstimate and practice without the basis for legality? And I'm saying let's put on the conversation table performance in addition to salaries. Let's put on a conversation table a collective labor agreement with predictability in what the relationship shall be. And so I want to pause on that note of thanks and express willingness for continued support and look forward to that continued support with you. Now I know that Terrence and Allison and others who organize this may not have been inclined to want you to leave your tangible support to the Vice Chancellor's Fund for the leave. But even though our treasurer is not here, I'm sure that he would not be on my foot give him any contributions that people want to make at this point. So I'll pause there.
So the idea is that we're going to open this up as a conversation. What I thought I'd do is take the prerogative of the moderator to sort of perhaps start the question. So one of the things that struck me is that you've gone on this journey. Broadly you're kind of increasing capital investment in the institution. You're looking at academic enhancements. You're discussing issues of economic viability. You're engaging the diaspora, and there is some resistance to that. And so the question, there are two questions. So one, I think you just articulated that in a way this resistance is a function of not being able to kind of manage, or folks are not really understanding the importance of excellence to the project, and the importance of, if you're going to make an omelet, you have to break an egg. So that's one part of it. But I'm wondering, your catchphrase sort of dreaming and doing. I'm wondering when Professor Ivelaw Lloyd Griffith dreams about what this university looks like 20 years out, what's the dream? What is the thing that, I think maybe your faculty and your staff, the thing that they can kind of coalesce around?
Well, let me answer that question in two ways. And the first is to offer a context comment on what I think is the watermark of the question. And the watermark of the question that I would offer is the dreaming and doing that I have introduced is not dreaming and doing outside of what academies do. It is largely dreaming and doing that is not within the portfolio of knowledge within Guyana. And so some people think that I'm creating these crazy ideas. It is just that I'm trying to normalize within Guyana what is normal in most universities in the Caribbean, in North America.
So it's helping, part of the dreaming and doing is helping people to understand that there's a paradigm shift we're introducing. And in the paradigm shift, you've got to take the willing, you've got to be willing to take risks to go to places you've not gone before. And that has not always been appreciated. But let me get to the second part, which is the essence of your question. I outlined in my values and vision statement what I call quoting Martin Luther King Jr. He gave a speech right here in New York in 1962. He was talking about Vietnam. He talked about the fierce urgency of now. And I use that phrase in trying to articulate what is the necessity for the university to embrace that urgency of now. And the urgency of now is one in which I say, and I quote to the gentleman who I've long admired for decades, a guy called Rabindranath Tagore. You might remember that Rabindranath Tagore became famous in a variety of respects, but his big fame came in 1913, when he was the first non-European to get the Nobel Prize. And he also became famous in 1919, when he repudiated the British effort to give him a knighthood. I had the opportunity of lecturing last year in a university named in his honor, and visiting in Calcutta. But Tagore said, among other things, you can't cross the sea simply by standing and staring at the water. You've got to make some bold decisions and choices. And for me, the urgency of now and the trajectory that Guyana is on requires the university to have some big dreams and big doing. If you always want to pick the low-hanging fruit and be comfortable, I'll give you a practical example of where I have to invoke another gentleman I admire. In the introduction you mentioned what I started at Fort Valley State, and that is the School of Entrepreneurship. The same gentleman who led that team to do the feasibility study at Fort Valley, but after that Fort Valley said, I want to help you wherever you go. I brought him to Guyana. He's not a Guyanese, Georgian. He led that feasibility team. When it came to the governing body approving that business school, a member of the governing body said to me, Mr. Chancellor, aren't you dreaming too big to have a business school? I am sitting there saying, so I said, let me tell you what Michelangelo said years ago. He said, our greatest challenge is not aiming high and missing our goal. It is always aiming low and reaching them. We don't have the luxury of always low-hanging fruit. We've got to aim high, have big dreams, and pursue them. And I think in the context of what Guyana means, the University of Guyana doesn't have the luxury of not dreaming big. Last year we had the first entrepreneurship conference. I said something there which I did not realize had impacted so many young folk until a couple of weeks ago. I talked about the business school as part of the thrust of the Renaissance in the context of what Jim Collins called his BHAGs, having big, hairy, audacious goals. Yeah. This was July of last year. A couple of weeks ago, a young graduate who is now a leading young woman in terms of entrepreneurship, trying to get young people to save and to manage their money. We had a Turkana and Tail talks looking at money matters, and she was on panel. She later sent me a text. She said, and I can read it to you if I find it just now. She said, Vice Chancellor, I want to thank you for what you said last year, July. So he said, what? She said, you told us to have big, hairy, audacious goals. I decided I want to set a goal of educating 11,000 young people and managing their money better. She said, it never occurred to me that it is possible to have big goals until you said, why not dream big? So this young woman now, president of our company, dynamic young entrepreneur, took seriously what I've been saying in the campus, off the campus. We have to have big goals. And the big goals will mean big investments. The investments don't have to come only from the government, which is part of what I've been saying. We've got to broaden the revenue pie, broaden the investment pie. We've got to bring in government and ask them for more. We've also got to bring in the business community and ask them to invest. We've got to reach out to our alumni and friends and say, how can you pay forward by giving back? And so having said that, I would like to, at the end of 20 years, long after I'm gone, see a University of Guyana that is characterized by at least three things. Be the place of choice, first choice, for Guyanese who want to invest in their tertiary education, in a variety of respects. No. We have 7 faculties in a school of business. We have now 130 different programs. Guyana should be the place where people feel so confident about the credibility of what we offer, that they don't use as their first choice the offshore schools. If you go to the National Accreditation Council listing, you'll see 17 different offshore schools. And I was in Texas 2 weeks ago. 2 more are coming. The all thing is bringing a lot of people coming. The University of Guyana needs to strengthen what we do and how we do it to be that first place of choice. But a university in a nation like Guyana cannot limit itself only to teaching. It's got to be a fulcrum around which research happens. And my staff told me not to bring back any of these books that I brought forward. They need to be sold here tonight. We've established the University of Guyana Press. This is the first book. We decided that the press is not only going to be producing books, we've got to get into the journals business. There's a team headed by Professor Alum Percy Hinson from Florida International. He's also one of those indefatigable supporters of mine, heading up a project to create a new journal on the Guyana Shield. Guyana, Suriname, Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, French Guyana. So we need to be the place around which research revolves. We've got some outstanding features of Guyana, which the University of Guyana needs to leverage. Our biodiversity. We have the basis for tropical medicine.
That's right. That's right.
We're not in that game as yet. We need to be accentuating the research. But the research is not only to be accentuated and supported by what the lecturers do, sponsored as well as not sponsored. We'll be having on the 10th, 11th, and 12th of this coming month, the 3rd undergraduate research conferences. We've got to get the students involved. Florida International, I created an undergraduate research program. York College, I created one. Radford University, created one. Fort Valley State, University of Guyana. We've got to get young students of their freshman year, first year, excited about research. And I just saw an email a couple of minutes ago saying, we've got 4 of our students accepted to present the research in Georgia. And I said to the team, we've got some ambassadors in Georgia. We can avoid paying for hotel and have them spend time hosted by these families. We have a group of 4 students going to Germany to present their research, the International Congress on Student Research. We've got to energize the students, not only the master's and PhD students, but the undergraduates, irrespective of your field. And for the second conference last year, as we had done elsewhere, I was starting these programs. We said, look, we've got to capture the whole panoply of creativity. And so we had a wonderful inclusion of the arts, painting, sculpture, allowing the students to showcase that creativity. So I think the second thing I'd like to see the university become is a beacon for research, not only by the lecturers, by the professors, but by students. Part of what we did, along with Conservation International and Arizona State University, we're building a partnership. I led a team to Arizona State University last November. Part of the interrelationship is that they sent a team a couple of weeks ago. We said, why don't we have, in addition to those students coming with their lecturer, some of our students join in the team. One of them, we have 4 biology students. Never occurred to them until this project that they were good enough to do research. I said, you can't wait until you get to the master's level. So the excitement of a research is there. So I would say that was the second thing that I would look forward to see in here's the final thing. The University of Guyana, along with the University of West Indies, are signatories in the treaty creating CARICOM as associate institutions. But over the years, as the University of Guyana moved itself to be more internal, limiting, it fell by the wayside. This university needs to get back as an engine of agency in the region. We are part of the Criminal Exams Council. Many people don't know that. In the council, the University of Guyana Vice Chancellor is a designated member of the executive body. But there are so many other entities at the regional level where we should be pulling our weight in more significant ways, and we're not. That is a function both of what happens at the university and what happens at the government. Because now, Terry Captain did not know this is being live streamed.
Don't say anything.
Sometimes we are our own worst enemies. And so it has to be a function of what the university does and what people beyond the university, what they do, to enable the university to have that leveraging at the beyond Guyana level. Some of it is there in the architecture. It is just over time we have fallen by the wayside by our own volition of our own volition. So that's a very long way to put it for scientists.
I think, well, the mathematician will say there are 3 things. The first thing is that you want this institution to be an institution of choice for Guyanese. The second is that you want this institution to be a place that creates knowledge that supports the Guyanese project. And the third is that you want this institution to be an institution that is a player in the regional sense.
Yep.
So that,
absolutely.
and I think this is very important. And there are a number of issues regionally that impact what happens in Guyana, as Ambassador Pursuit referred to in his opening remarks. And perhaps maybe I can tap into your academic expertise. Ambassador Pursuit noted the Conference on Crime, and I think currently, we had this conversation sometime very recently, in the top 25 of, really terrible crime statistics, a large number of Caribbean countries appear as leading in this arena.
So you get...
Yeah, so I wanted to sort of say, well, how do you see it? I mean, this is something that, we've talked about this before. Guyana is a country with relatively small population, and maybe this is in some way leading to this kind of normalization of I don't want to say mediocrity, but the normalization of lower standards. And how do you see the university in that context? How do you see the university coming to be this change agent in the society more broadly? I know the Turpentine talks. Could you maybe say a bit about the Turpentine talks and their possible impact on the socioeconomic and the culture of
Well, I'd say 3 things. coming back to my point with the university, doesn't have the luxury of only being a teaching institution. It's got to be an institution that does research. It has got to be an institution that does research that is both policy relevant and theoretical. And it's in a policy relevant domain where the value of the embraced by the polity both in the policymakers and in the broad civic society, when they feel comfortable that you've got the credibility and worth to say, help me on this. It is not unique to Guyana, it is true of many societies in the Caribbean and Latin America, where there's a predilection to turn to the outside to get advice, even though there may be people on the inside. But that predilection will reduce over time if the credibility and value rise. So the onus is on us to not only do the research, but share it. The onus is on us to market the capabilities. I've been on a journey to, let's enhance the website. Let's tell people who we are. You know, we're fighting a battle in the University of Guyana of an image and a brand of 20 years that is not necessarily a positive brand. But unless we tell people the things you're doing, they may be inclined to hold on to that negative brand that they know of, that has been the dominant narrative. So, the Turkan and Tain Talk, the conversations on law and society, the Renaissance lecture, are all part of that enhancing the brand while enabling people in society to see the value of the university over and above just teaching. Allow people to see the importance of building the partnerships. Each one of those Turkan and Tain Talks, we'll be having number 17, I think, next month, is a partnership. We say, private sector, government, academics, international organizations, let's have your investment collectively by co-sponsorship. Let's bring your value and your talent and your expertise to the conversation. And the Turkan and Tain Talks in particular has become an expected staple. Expected staple. I asked, we had a conversation on marijuana recently. So I asked the guy who manages the live stream, I said, what is our average followership? He said, for that one, we have 7,000 people. Across the diaspora, not just in Guyana. We started the Artist in Residence program. Keith Wake in London was the first Artist in Residence. Dave Martins was the second. Dave gave a performance at the bandstand in December. I could not be there, I was in New York, but I was following it online. It was wonderful to see Guyanese in Bolivia, in Canada, in the US, in the UK, commenting this. 2 days later on, I got an email from Dave's sister in Canada. Remember, he had a sister thanking me for giving her little brother an opportunity to have his talent be appreciated by Guyana. So the point I'm making is that those enrichment events, we call them public engagement events, are part of enabling the society to value the university in ways in which that valuation was not there in a positive way. Allows the broader society, within Guyana and outside of Guyana, to see what are the connection possibilities for future research, to see what are the connection possibilities for new programs. We've had approached us, Lands and Surveys Commission, because of things and those topics. Can you help us with a program on X? We have now the first situation last year of a land management diploma. It came out of came out of the conversation of law and society. Foreign Minister Greenwich, I invited him to do something similar to what he did here. The talk he gave about the guy in the world stage. He was so excited about the whole thing, but it got undermined by the parliamentary debate. And so when he called at a little before 4 to say, I'm still stuck, the room was packed. I said, I'm not going to turn this into a no then. I pulled together a panel. Ambassador Rudy Collins was in your office and said, Rudy, you need to be this panel. Ambassador Ron Larson was in this panel. I said, Ron, you need to be in this panel. Mikiko Tanaka, United Nations Resident, said, Mikiko, can you join? It was a wonderful conversation about Guyana and the world stage. If people even said, maybe it's a good thing the Prime Minister didn't show up, because we had a broader, richer discourse than if you heard just from him. So the collective value of those events, we've done a couple of them outside of Georgetown, but you know that there are challenges once you get out of Georgetown. There's a wonderful new hotel in Amsterdam. We're hoping that becomes a place now where we can go out of the Little Rock place. But I've committed that we're going to need to do some of them and let them, not room them, in particular, across the society. But I'm delighted that the live streaming has been reaching a broader than Guyana, and a broader than Georgetown.
Yeah. So I'll take the province with the moderator to begin to open up for questions. But I wanted to ask one more, but maybe
I'm
maybe
talking
not.
too much, man.
No. Well, I can't ask
No,
that.
I'm talking.
So we'll start with you, Randy Barrett.
Yeah, thank you.
You can stand up.
Hi, everyone. This is great. This is really good. My question has to do with data and analytics. We're in the big data age. Everything is data analytics. I can probably say this with 100% confidence that ExxonMobil knows Guyana probably better than the government knows Guyana because of data and analytics. How do you plan to introduce data science, data analysis, analytics into the university so that we can be more of a data-driven economy, a data-driven country where decisions are not made by just a whim but with evidence. And one last thing, I'm going to put a plug in on the conversations on Law and Society. April 16th, I'll be talking about the Sovereign Wealth Fund, so definitely stay tuned at 5 p.m.
And where you?
So I'm Rennie Paris. I've been in finance and investments for about 15 years. Currently finishing up the Wharton School of Business, and I've worked with major companies like JP Morgan, S&P, and pension funds.
Very important issue, very good comment. You might recall what Mark Twain said years ago. He said that there is this thing called lies, there is this thing called down lies, and then there's this thing called statistics. But notwithstanding what Mark Twain said, we have a collective challenge, and it's no consolation to say it's not just a Guyana challenge, it's a collective challenge, of having the basis for evidence-based decision making. It's no consolation to say that it is a broader than university challenge. And there are at least two ways in which, and I don't know that we've attempted yet significantly enough, but we've got to go there. The first approach is to have the infrastructure, not only to assemble, but to analyze for that. We don't have much of that in many places. On the financial side, on the basic heuristics of decision-making side, women are fancy, so we have to build infrastructure. But we also have to have an acclimation, it's a kind of a paradigm shift, that once the data are presented and are analyzed, they will be used. That is often the litmus test of the value of investing time and effort in collecting and analyzing the data. Who uses it? And so it's got to be the wisdom of the broader society, policy in both private and public sectors, that you've got to invest in infrastructure. Some of the infrastructure is human capital. Some of the infrastructure is data management systems. One of the things we did when we went to Arizona State University, we went to one of their data labs, and we've asked them to help us get one of those at zero cost to us. So that will be part of infrastructure and human capital. But you're absolutely right, we're not there yet. And you're also absolutely right that some entities know much more about us than we know about ourselves. And sometimes some folks, even inside the CIA, what the CIA does is a lot of it is open sources. We've got to have a willingness on the part of private and public sector officials to begin to invest confidence in the data that's in-house. We had a few weeks ago the outstanding, I don't know if some of you followed it, second C.Y. Thomas Distinguished Lecture by Roger Hussein from UAE. He amassed a variety of data from a variety of sources. And it was wonderful at one hand, and disconcerting on the other hand, to hear him say that some of the people who he checked with were questioning the accuracy and validity of your data. So if you don't have any confidence in your own data, how do you expect others to have confidence? So we've got a confidence issue, which is a cultural issue, but we've got an infrastructure issue. And again, you don't have the luxury of building infrastructure and waiting for the confidence in the human capital. You've got a little bit of each. And I'm reminded now that when I get back, I have to ask the lead person on that GROW project, when are we getting this thing from ASC?
Go ahead. So on the back, and then we'll come to you. So state your name and then the question.
I am concerned about the existing culture at the University of Guyana. Even though you've been doing your thing, trying to make things happen, there's a pushback. And you can find it in every little corner, in every little part of the university. And I asked this, I'm questioning it because I was at the university doing some research on land, ancestral land. We talked about, we made mention of infrastructure. I think one of the things that we have to do is to start training the university staff to change themselves to welcome this age of technology and the new culture that is swaying across globalization. Because in a second I can get as much information on how to deal with garbage, and it's so effective that I don't have to go far to get anything. And I think at the university where we have staff who want more money, I think we've got to introduce some reorganization of how they are being educated and how they deliver service to the public. Now, the other thing that the other question I want to, that was a statement, and I want to ask the question, why is it that technology and culture transfer to Guyana, we have such a hard time, but the greenback and the barrel is welcome. I don't know. I'm trying to understand what is really happening in Guyana that the diaspora is so hated. That when you see Ivelaw Griffith shows up, he's seen like, I took the Vice Chancellor to take up, and it was emancipation. It was a period of emancipation, and I was shocked. The question is, why? Why is it?
What are the roots of the
resistance? Who's doing it?
So we'll
and I'm not saying that, what I want to say is that there's nothing more that an individual from outside can come now and do. I don't do anything more than it. I'm just looking after my personal. But I'm asking the question, what is the pushback or blowback on
we'll get the Vice Chancellor's sense of what that.
Well, I would have been shocked, Terrence, if
Bernard has made a statement or asked a question without particular being part of it. But let me say a few things. First of all, what Guyana is experiencing with what I call a love-hate relationship with the diaspora is not unique to Guyana. It's not unique to Guyana. That phenomenon has existed and will exist in all societies for a variety of reasons, and as they mature, you have an attenuation of some of the pushback, but the pushback will be there. I've got some private views as to what are some of the geneses of the pushback, which I'm not going to voice here. But I want to assure you that there are many supportive Guyanese, not only looking for the greenbacks, not only looking at campaign time to come to the diaspora. There are many Guyanese who are welcoming. One or two have publicly defended me in the media. People in Guyana, people who have returned to Guyana. So I want to not paint a broad brush of negativism or pushback on the part of all Guyanese. I understand some of the reasons for it, and I understand the maturation that our society will be going through in the context of other societies having that same experience. But let me get to my second point, which is the business of customer service. And again, it's no consolation to say that that is a reality of our society writ large. We have not appreciated as yet the customer service, the customer-centric element of service, whether it's in the private or the public domain. From the time you hit the airports and you're greeted by the customs and immigration folks, if you're not conscious of the reality, you think that they don't want you. And it is something that conscious effort needs to be made within the university, and I'll tell you what we started to do in that respect, and in the broader society. In the hospital, in the hotels, you see it sometimes. It's just not there. The University of Guyana does a number of things wonderful, but like many institutions, we don't do some things well. Customer service is not one of those things that people don't. And so I'm delighted that 2 years ago, the registrar initiated a customer service orientation workshop session for the registry. Registry has about almost 90 staff. One Saturday is part of a phased approach. Phase 2 was to be in the registry. Actually, bursary was involved in that first one. So we've got to go methodically, unit by unit. But we also have to do some things that are not directly customer service to lift morale and to have a sense of respect on the part of, and value on the part of people who serve the university. And I started that in 2 ways a couple of years ago. We do a celebration of all mothers for Mother's Day. Let the various departments identify a mother. And I get the private sector to come, put some money in, and we celebrate the mothers. We do the same thing for fathers. As a matter of fact, this past Father's Day, several of the private sector leaders who were there, including a good friend of mine, one of our education resource ambassadors, Jerry DeVille, not only did he contribute some of the prizes, he said, I'm going from next year when we do this in my company. I'm going to celebrate our fathers. I'm going to celebrate our mothers. You don't see the immediate return of that investment, but just giving people a sense that you value them, you believe that there is something that they can celebrate. I hosted an event, an appreciation event for all the library staff. The library has been going through some terrible circumstances. When you come on campus, you see some of the modifications and announcements. But the staff have had to endure that stuff. So I said, we'll just keep a party for them, just to say thank you. And it was remarkable what happened the other day. I asked everyone to introduce themselves. People have been working with each other for 10, 15 years, never knew some things that they heard the first time. When the time for us to do music, the dancing,
Some of these young people were dancing in ways that I never know she can dance like that. It will just allow people to have a social side. And for me, we've got to find a way to keep those, and keep the Christmas party, let people have a celebration. So it is not only whatever you might do formally, I'm saying here is what we need to do. It's how do you give a sense of appreciation to people, so that they will see themselves as ambassadors and servants in the positive sense of the word, rather than a chore that they've got to go through and be whipped if they don't perform the chore. The technology transfer is an issue. And part of the challenge, again, it's not a consolation to say it's a challenge at the university. It's a challenge in a broader society. Technology transfer has two critical components to it if you want to make investment in the long term. You've got to invest in not only getting the technology, but you've got to invest in the training and the human capital to use it appropriately. And there are so many cases, and many of us who are part of efforts, relief efforts, have given things to countries where it's there, not being used because there is no adequate training to use the equipment. And then when the equipment is broken down, the maintenance and parts, if you don't invest in that part, getting the front end is necessary, but it's not sufficient. You've got to train people how to use it appropriately. And then you've got to find a way to enable the sustainability of what is transferred when it comes to maintenance, when it comes to repairs. And many of us in this room have had not so positive experiences with regard to that aspect. So it's not as simple as selling stuff. It is how do you enable the trained to adequately use it.
Can you ask the exam to assist?
You're asking about people to exist. Yes. Go ahead.
Compton Road, St. Louis Alumni Association. For someone who's been working in the trenches in terms of give back to the secondary school, what is the university doing to engage the leadership at the high school level, at the primary school level, Ministry of Education, Teachers College, so that you can achieve this excellence change? How is the university engaging at the lower level for societal change?
Excellent question. One of the things I've said to folks both on and off campus is that the fierce urgency of now that we have at the university is not a fierce urgency of now limited to the university. But I've got to be mindful of the purview of my portfolio. I can't solve everybody's problems. I can't solve it. People are saying, well, you need to do this. Yes, but who's going to give me money to do it? You need to do that. So yes, there are things, given the connectivity between primary, secondary, and tertiary, there are things that need to be done that it is not within my portfolio to solve all those problems. I'll tell you two that we've begun to build the synergies with. Last year, June, I think it was, I convened a consultation on writing. We have a terrible problem with writing in Guyana. At the university. Some people may not want me to say it, but that's a reality. We brought into the conversation Ministry of Education at various levels. We brought the private sector. We brought the CPC. We said we've got to have a collective conversation about how the university does its part, but how other elements in the structure do their part. That conversation was a two-day conversation that led to recommendations of next steps. Some of the next steps are beyond the purview of the university. I have to leave those to those relevant domains. Some of them have to do with what we need to do at the university, and we've begun to work on those. Critical would be establishment of writing clinics for students. Give you another one. Last year, June, as we begun to have the conversation about preparing for oil and gas, I hosted the president of the University of Trinidad and Tobago. we launched a program in partnership with UTT, the Associate in Science and Petroleum Engineering. So I hosted him and I took the opportunity of bringing in one forum the heads of all the technical institutes. And I proposed a consortium that would link all the technical institutes, and it was a learning on our part. We didn't know they had so many technical institutes again. And we've established a consortium, a higher education consortium on engineering and mining. They elected me as the founding president. The idea is to how to synergize, because we know that in the oil and gas, some of the skills needed are not going to be university skills. They're going to be the technical institutes. But we also know that the technical institutes have their limitations. We want to be able to collectively put our heads together. Some of what they will need is some of their lecturers coming to complete their bachelor's and master's at the university. How to create a seamless transition for them to come. So that consortium, we're having a meeting next week, I think, the 25th, is an expression of how, given the connectivity between university and other sectors, there are things that we can do. But I am not going to be in the business of trying to solve everybody's problems.
So we want one on this side, so, Jamal.
Yeah, but that's a good, how is the student population accepting these changes that you are engineering right now? The student population.
I think by and large, very positive. And one of the interesting things about student acceptance, and I've given you specific examples, what's the name of the part of the defense secretary on the George Bush who talked about Donald Rumsfeld. Known unknowns and unknown unknowns. Some of these students just did not know. And they're happy to be embracing positive change. Some of them knew because they had gone either on visits or completed degrees at other institutions and now see that what we were having in Guyana is really high. So by and large, positive. I'll give you two examples. When I proposed in 2017 tuition increases, so we could no longer afford the business model, we've got to increase tuition. We had several working groups put a proposal to me. The students on the working group were upset. Anybody would be upset about tuition going up. So I said, look, why don't we have you meet with the bursar and the registrar, get the data, see what the income and what the expenditure is, and then you come back with a proposal. The students came back with a proposal that essentially I accepted in 1 week. So if you allow them to be part of the process, you see their investment of interest and the investment of time and energy in wanting to make positive. So I'm by and large very happy with the student inclusion. When we were planning the oil and gas programs, I distinctly remember where we were sitting. A student who was representing the engineering students in the meeting I had on campus with the president of UTT. When I floated the idea that we are not going to be able to afford the luxury of having this new engineering program be at the regular engineering cost. The student said, Terrence, you're correct, because when we graduate with engineering, we didn't make a lot of money. So the students should be able to pay. There is, if you bring them involved, get involved in the process, and help them to see the information, get their critique. Yes, you're going to have some pushback, but by and large, I've been pleased with the student engagement and the student response.
So I'll come to Leslie Stewart next to look at this. I'm sorry, I missed, so first,
All right. Now,
Hazelwood,
Dr. Hazelwood,
Hazelwood and then Leslie Stewart, and then
can you give me curiosity? Current status report, and projections for the future for medical and dental students. You refer,
You referred to accreditation and so forth. I'm not familiar with what accrediting body you use in Guyana. Yeah, that's information. Well, just so that my curiosity arises from the fact that I created the National Oral Health Care System for Guyana about 25, 30 years ago, and haven't really followed up.
Yeah. Well, there is an accreditation body for the entire Caribbean, English-speaking, Spanish-speaking, French-speaking, called CAMHP, Caribbean Association of Allied Health. And it started with accreditation of medicine. It is going beyond medicine. Now it has gone to dentistry. It's going to go to optometry. Institutions that graduate students that are not accredited are limited in the geographic locale in which they're able to practice unless they pass the boards of the respective other jurisdictions. Or in the case of the United States, they pass the boards at the federal level. We were able to, UG's School of Medicine was accredited but lost accreditation in 2012. We were able to get it back in 2017. It's for 4 years. It's an annual review. We're going to come back up in 2017. We decided to go beyond medicine to test our method with dentistry. We were not successful in the first out. And what is true of medicine and it is true of dentistry is that the areas of improvement are both on the university side and on the government side. The primary clinical facilities for medicine and for dentistry are government institutions. Matter of fact, we had a meeting with the Minister of Public Health in December last year to ask her to broaden the institutions where clinical attachments can be held beyond the PHC, Western Lara, and so on. The principal dental clinical facility for the dentistry is the Cherry Dragon Dental Clinic. Both the university and the ministry made enhancements, but we have not met the bar. The bar has to do with essentially infrastructure enhancements that still need to be done, but also faculty specializations. They've got about 70 specializations in dentistry. We're not there yet. But we've got another year. You can go back up until 2 years. So we're going to use the intervening period to get ourselves ready so that when we go back up, we can not only meet the scale of our CAMHP is the regional-wide accreditation body.
So I think we have Leslie Stewart and someone else, and then we'll come to you.
Okay. I'm going to stick on infrastructure, but more so the physical infrastructure. Because what are your plans for technology to assist in development of the country's basically sewer and water, roads, electricity, and also what are your research programs in technology whereby you can use materials from Guyana to help in that development? And another question, I don't know if GATE still exists. That's the Guyana Association of Professional Engineers. What is their association with the engineering department of Guyana? And what are the safety requirements being taught in technology to ensure that the infrastructure is properly built and the programs used will enhance the longevity of whatever you do?
Good questions. I want to start with the last aspect first. November last year, we graduated the single largest group of civil and environmental engineers, including a group of almost 30 women, first time
30 people. And I met the group early in the year and I said to them, the onus is on you not only to be technically competent, but to have integrity. I've been preaching the values of respect, integrity, and excellence. And the more I see reports about corruption, including in the professionals zone, the more I see reports about sloppy work done. A famous case in the Cato school, the youth period. We've got to reinforce the value of doing it right and right for the right reason, the integrity issue. I cannot speak with confidence about what the curriculum design in that is, but it is something that I will be arguing for as a common denominator throughout all 4 years. My worry, and I've seen it in other jurisdictions, including the United States, we know that once the oil money comes, there's going to be a need to spend it on infrastructure. Minister Patterson, Minister Gaskin, Minister Kathy Hughes, myself, Nigel Hughes are part of the team in Houston a couple weeks ago. And Minister Patterson spoke eloquently about the government's plan for investment in infrastructure. That will put the pressure on the university not only to have, and we already don't produce enough civil, electrical, mechanical engineering, but once that money begins to flow and the investment in infrastructure begins to happen, we are not going to be able to make the cut if we keep the trajectory of investment. My 2016 values and vision statement, which may not be actualized while I'm Vice Chancellor, we need to have a new campus focusing on energy and mining. I've named Linden as a place that would be appropriate for that. Where you can invest, you know, Turkana, I looked at it, has a lot of land, but moving beyond Turkana. My worry is not only you're crunching so much into that 115 acres, but we are along the coast, which is sitting at the edge of a climate change precipice. And I've said, build a new, part of my big dream, build a new campus focusing on energy and mining, engineering. So right now, I think next week we'll be having another Schlumberger doing something with us with technology. And the investments are coming small, but they're not significant enough to make the kind of impact that I think are needed. Sometimes people fault me for trying to dream too much, dream too big. But you've got to be asking for big investments in engineering if you want to have sustainable returns on the investment. And we're not there yet. One of the things that kind of is a regret of mine regarding the October to December 21 is that it has slowed a lot of things down, and it has put a cloud on a lot of things. We had a proposal and had a first meeting with the Director of Energy, Dr. Mark Bynum, about a request we had made to invest in engineering. First meeting, second meeting, hasn't gone very much far. But your concern is recognized. We need to do more to invest not only in engineering and technology, but in the sciences. I was disappointed that one of the things that came out, when I visited India last year, I asked a number of institutions to help us on a critical shortage area that we have in society, that is physics. Physics teachers in the high schools are not there, math teachers, science teachers, and the High Commissioner to India, Dr. Pollard, has identified that as fine. Dynamic young physicists. ready to come to Guyana. You got a better offer in Switzerland. So, but we still have that journey. The point I make is that the investment in engineering has also got to be in those allied areas, the physics, in the math, in the chemistry, the biology. And so that journey is still continuing.
I'll take my prerogative and go to Longford first and then, because we haven't had one. So you go first, and then work.
First, I want to congratulate you on the renaissance of teaching. And I know very well. Whenever I go to Guyana, I used to go there and visit, and we try to help there as much as possible. One of the institutions or buildings that you have resurrected or reconstructed is the library. That was so fun of mine. This university, because you know, as a student, that's sacred for our history. That's where you do your research and your homework and all that. Having said that, the question I want to ask is, how can the students do research now that the infrastructure is there? How can the student do the research if you have no publications? Or if you need publications, say in energy, mining, science, business, all the other disciplines, how can diaspora help in not only stopping, but in putting those research building blocks in the library so that students can go to the library, do their own research, do their homework and all that? Because without the library, where would the students go? I know that a lot of students use the internet. But to do the research is not enough. You sit there collectively with other students in the library area. It lends itself to learning, discussion, and all of those things. So my question is, how can the world help that is not in place now? And what's your vision to see that research for not only our graduate students can go there, and how can we use technology also to help them go to the library and do whatever they want to do. For instance, mining, which is new, engineering, all of those things. You do need the library for those students to excel.
Very good question / observations. 3 points. The library has been one of my points of emphasis and priority. Not only with regard to physical enhancements. Last May, I went along with Minister Jordan and the president of CDB to the CDB annual meeting in Grenada, signed an agreement for $5 million investment in a new library. If all goes well, the design stage should be going forward, moving slower than I would like. But in preparation for that, I sent a team to look at modern libraries elsewhere. The team went to Georgia and Trinidad. As we speak, the emphasis has not been only in a physical facility. The emphasis has been also in making the technology mediation an important part of our libraries. And it connects to something you said I'm going to come back to, and that is the online and the diaspora's role. I mentioned the name Professor Percy Hinson, graduate of the university, good friend of mine. He's now Florida International. He's been one of the champions of enabling Florida International University to help with the library. He and another member of FIU, Miguel Asensio, came down. Not only are they helping us with equipment, they're helping us with training. 2 members of our staff are going to Florida to spend a month. They're going to host it entirely. All I've got to do is find their fare. They're going to take care of everything with regard to their living there for that month, to enable them to have the training capabilities to use. Part of what Florida International benefits from is some high-speed technology link to Brazil. We're exploring whether we can link Guyana into that portal so that the technology, the speed, the bandwidth are not issues that we got to contend with. The reality is that libraries are critical for physical, but they're also increasingly technology-mediated online. So I would say, in response to your direct question about how the diaspora can help, the diaspora can subscribe to online journal subscriptions. And we had that in the case of one of our medical graduates who was paying for the online subscription for a particular journal. That is one practical way you can do it. Another practical way you can do it is help with some of the equipment. We had a group of Guyanese, only one of whom is UG graduate from Maryland, computers. Mohammed Shahabadin's son, also UG graduate of law, significant donation of equipment and books. So there are a variety of ways in which the diaspora can make their contributions known. The CDB effort is going forward, slower than the procurement rules kind of create a certain amount of lethargy. But the library is one of our areas of investment. We had an expansion of the Burbis Library. We don't have enough for everyone, but you'll see a little portion of the Burbis Library expansion, because my thinking is that in the context of the one university, we can't only focus on the Turkana Library. And so we've been doing things to enhance. But library is a critical area. And not only for instruction, but also for research. As you push the envelope on research, you're going to have to create the opportunity for the bases for research being available in the library, or accessible to the library, portals from the library.
So what's the critical as it stands now? What's critical as far as the library is concerned? Students access to information. Is that available right now?
It's available. It's available. And I want to publicly thank the library staff that has been working on a very trying condition over the last several years.
And is there a list or something that you have that, as far as research, physical research, and as far as technology that you need to know in the library?
I don't have a list with me, but I can have a list prepared. Our philanthropy and alumni engagement office led by Professor Mohammed manages those lists, and we can tell you what's needed from technology, what's needed from the library. It is part of that is allowed FIU to say, we will help you with this, we'll help you in that.
It's a good question.
So that list can be
We're
provided.
sure that as a takeaway from this, we will actually grab that list and disseminate it to the folks over here. Mr. Burke, and then
Good evening, Doctor.
How are you?
I see you in the chill zone from the hot to the hot seat. So I have a question that has three short parts. One, you may know that a number of us are working on a new movement, which movement for Guyana, that will be launched shortly. And in preparation for that, we've had extensive consultation and surveys throughout the country. And we've come up with a charter, which I'm sure will be engaging you shortly. There are three things in the charter that I'm happy you're here, I can ask about. One is, one of the recommendations coming from the charter is the abolition of tuition at UG. And as you know, that is a constitutional right in Guyana, abolished by the PDP. It's going to be a hot topic in the campaign, I know that. Now, I would like to know what your thoughts are with regard to that. And second, another recommendation coming out of in the charter would be there's significant concern about the capacity of the university to cater for courses that are relevant, or training that would be relevant to the emerging economy, and we touched on some of it, with the Linden, proposed Linden campus and so on, and PhD programs, masters in certain areas that impact an emerging modern economy in Guyana. And then the third thing is, which was as popular as the abolition of tuition, is the establishment of a community college system in Guyana to be managed by the University of Guyana. And to that extent, they proposed, and I'm happy you spoke about consortium, they proposed the merging of Critchlow, Burroughs, Gator, and so on to form a college, community college of the arts, President's College to become a college for science and so on, and GITC, GNIC, GTI, and the ISUCO to become an engineering, community college of engineering and those occasional subjects. So, I mean, I'm amazed at the brilliance of the young people in Guyana when I look at the proposals that they have made. And I'm pretty sure it's going to inspire the whole youth population. And in advance of that coming out, I wanted to know your thoughts.
Good. Three sets of important issues. The business of university free education, which is enshrined in the Constitution, as quite rightly said, is a reflection of one of those realities in societies of managing contradictions. And what the Constitution postulates in free education is not the only contradiction that society has been managing, or some would say not managing. But I want to offer a cautionary note about free tuition. If free tuition is defined only as the absence of payment by students of tuition for whether primary or secondary, especially in this case university, without looking to make the investments in those critical elements to make the university function, it will be a sad reality for Guyana. Investment has got to be made in the infrastructure. Investment has got to be made in the equipment. Investment has got to be made in research, in better salaries and emoluments overall for academic and non-academic staff. But I would also caution the rush to free tuition by asking, let's take a look at societies where in the recent times there has been that model, and let's see what happened to those models. I referenced earlier that the wonderful, and hopefully some people here would have seen it, C.Y. Thomas Distinguished Lecture by Roger Hussein. His whole lecture had to do with what are some of the issues that Guyana will have to manage with this oil money. And he addressed the issue of free tuition. And he cited Trinidad's experience that is a lesson for Guyana not to follow. In giving free tuition, and I would say all the proponents of it need to pause and look at lessons learned from other jurisdictions for its purpose. The University of Guyana Student Society had a series of debates recently. I was able to attend the second one. The subject of debate was that same free university tuition. And it was remarkable to hear some of the students who went in thinking that is a good thing. Once they had a chance to hear the other side, that's what they said, audi alter partem. Hear the other side. Once they were able to hear the other side, they said, boy, I'm not so socialistic. So the jury is still out as to whether there is not so much utility, but necessity for free tuition in managing this contradiction at the University of Guyana. The jury is still out for me. I am one of several people in this room, perhaps, who benefited from free university tuition. All we had to do is a year of national service. But then the free tuition by itself, if you look at the return on the investment by the people who are beneficiaries, unless you have controls,
you can have a recurrence of what happened in the 80s and the 90s, where the human capital goes. You're educated and they go. But let me tell you also what is likely to happen. I've said more than once, I had an interesting experience in '97 when I was doing a series of book launches. I had a book written called Drugs and Security, Sovereignty on the Siege. When we were in Aruba, the head of the prisons in Aruba said to me, "See, look, Professor Griffith, this drug trafficking thing is giving my prison wardens a wonderful education." So what do you mean? He said, "We are arresting people and imprisoning them from countries we never knew existed. Once the oil becomes available in Guyana, there will be people coming to Guyana from countries that Guyanese never knew existed. And the question will be, are they also entitled to free?"
The proposal addresses that.
Good. So there are a number of elements that have to be factored in. How do you say to a family that comes with the young children, some of whom are teenage years, how do you preclude them from this constitutional right to citizens from free education? So I want to leave that one there. You're absolutely right, and this is one of the things we've begun to look at the university here. What might we, looking at the trajectory of the society, what might we need to begin to introduce as new programs? It is that led us to establish the School of Entrepreneurship and Business Innovation. And I said to the feasibility team, as we do the feasibility in the School of Business, we need to see what our connectivity is with the oil that's coming. We know that once oil and gas come, hot areas are going to be logistics and supply chain management. So one of the new degrees we introduced, not only for oil and gas, but because there was that link with logistics and supply chain management. Last October the 25th, to be exact, we launched an Institute for Food and Nutrition Security. The worry given the experience of Nigeria, Trinidad, Venezuela, is that when they all come, if you don't have a studied approach, you'll have a neglect of agriculture. So we said we need to be among the places that have a voice in saying you can't neglect agriculture. So we have a new degree starting this semester, food science. We have a new degree in petroleum engineering masters, an associate degree, an associate level. So we've got to find a way to ask the question, what's on the horizon? What, in response to the society's constituencies, we need to be doing? We launched a new degree this semester on youth development, youth work and development, because we found the response of the society has been, not only are a number of youth in need of skills enhancement, but a number of people who work with young people, they themselves need to be adequately skilled enhanced. And it was wonderful. We had a launching symposium for a youth degree, youth development degree, one for the food science, and one for the engineering. And for the engineering, I brought the principal and pro vice chancellor from St. Augustine. He was happy. I got an email from a friend in Jamaica saying, "Well, how did you get Hilary Beckles and Brian Copeland to come to your campus the same day? That don't happen in UB." So, well, I got some arithmetics. Hilary is a good friend of way back, and he came to deliver the Noel Meny's lecture. And Brian is a friend of more recent vintage, but I said, "Brian, I need you to come and talk about." He did a wonderful lecture. Again, saying some of what Guyana needs to do is not do what Trinidad did. Let me come to your third area. I think it would be valuable to have a community college network, but not managed by the University of Guyana. You need to create an independence of the university, a relationship with, but not a management by the community college. Even in times of bounty, there can be resource competition. And if you set up the university to be as the arbiter for the resource for that community college network, you set up the stage for conflict that accentuates beyond collaboration. So it should be some either independent entity that manages that, or the Ministry of Education. But I think there is value in having that network and not only establishing it, but resourcing it.
I have one follow-up. One follow-up, and Ms. Wharton, and, it's slipping away. I just noticed that it was 8:45.
The major concern that's led to that proposal, which is very popular, is because of the tuition, we've eliminated poor from going to university. How is the society going to deal with that going forward? Because we've already shut a lot of people out because of cost.
I'll give you two responses to that, but that the evidence does not suggest the veracity of what you say. I mentioned earlier that there are 17 offshore schools. You know who they service? Guyanese who pay 2-3 times the tuition to go there. So the pocketbook availability or non-availability is not a compelling argument if we look at the evidence. Here's the other thing.
But is that from people who have the ability to go to cheap?
Yes.
We talk with those that don't.
Well, that's the second thing. Those who don't have a loan facility for them to apply and get. And I remember the same time we came down, you guys came down in June 2016, the government, and people started blaming me, the government published a list of defaulters. Some of them big lawyers, big doctors. Some of them were mad at me. Ivelaw, how are you? I said, I'm not the one who's published this. Not about Eugene, has nothing to do with that loan agency. We just the beneficiaries. So there's a loan facility of generous proportions that significantly has been abused. It's taken as if it's a grant, and people just don't pay back. The government tried to impose some controls, but that loan facility creates an access by people who would otherwise not be able to access. So the loan ability, what I think would be helpful or necessary as an investment in education is to broaden that, not simply make free tuition, but you know the reality in the Guyana country, and I said it, I've seen it in other parts of Asia, and we experienced it in the 80s and 90s in Guyana. You make something completely free, the valuation of it is not as high as it was. When you put in something, I started doing something at Florida International. When we would have students going on these trips, I would say, let them pay for at least one meal. Let them pay for the transportation from the airport, because you give them everything free. And it became important after the second experience where we had paid for the travel, paid for the hotels, and the day before, the agreement, I can't go anymore. Why? I don't know my girlfriend. Some frivolous things. Well, we couldn't get the money because we already paid for the travel. We paid for the hotel, get back to the hotel. So I started having them sign a contract that says, here is how much, and you're going to pay for at least one something. And so I would say make the loan facility available for a broader group. But believe me, there are people who pay 2, 3, 4 times what UG charges to those private schools. And I was laughing driving down home stretch Caritas Avenue the other day. See one of the offshore schools boasting about they're the top respected private medical school. But I said, I didn't see anything that says not accredited. University of Guyana Medical School is the only accredited medical school. Yeah. But there are many people who come, Guyanese and non-Guyanese. I had a group of a combination of Ghanaians, Ugandans, and Nigerians. I just got into UB 2016. He came to see me. He wanted to transfer. I said, there's no such thing as transfer. You can't, I don't want to be accused of poaching. They explained the litany of complaints they laid out. So I said, well, we are free and open to application. None of those students met our basic requirements. They kept saying, we have the money. I said, it's not about the money. We want to graduate a doctor who's going to be helping people, not hurting them. If you can't pass the chemistry and the math, how are you going to be a doctor? So it is, the evidence is different.
There are some institutions, they are not as judicious about standards as they are judicious about the income. And people are paying. But they don't want to pay to Eugene.
Ms. Wharton, you get the last question.
Thank you. So my question is, we've been reading about the conflict between the administration and the unions at UG. So could you give us an update on where you are with that, and what are some of the stumbling blocks, and how do you foresee getting over or around or on some of these stumbling blocks?
Okay. Very good question, very important issue. The update requires me to step back a little bit. 2017, when the negotiations began, I said we can't talk only about salaries. We have to talk about performance. Unions were not interested in talking performance. I said I'm not going to sign any agreement that only talks about salaries. So those negotiations were stalled for like 3 months. There were 2 unions. For me, the litmus test on the performance had to do with grade submission. So the union that is not in the academic sphere, that don't have any lectures, they said, we will sign. I said, fine. Sign. The other union reluctantly signed on the direction, said, fine. We ensured that no one who had an outstanding grade got a salary increase. Give until December 1, turning the grades. It is a sad commentary on our disrespect for professionalism to have students with grades pending for a semester, in some cases a year. And I said I will not sign any agreement to give people who do not do their jobs salary increase when people who do the job get it. 2017. 2018, that's my refrain again. We cannot talk only about salaries. We've got to talk about performance. We've got to talk about collective bargaining agreement. We've got to talk about workload. Negotiations stalled on that, and on the union's insistence on my changing 2 members of this administration's negotiating team. I said, I don't tell you to put in your team. You don't tell me to put in my team. My team is my team. Stall up until November, but I recognize, and we have been setting aside some money to do something for the workers. So I took a proposal to the Finance and General Purpose Committee in November to say, even though these negotiations are stalled, I still want to be able to offer the workers something. We use the principle of affordability. We cannot offer what we cannot afford. That proposal is endorsed by that committee, including a yes vote by one of the union presidents who was on the committee. But after the meeting, when he go back to his folks, how dare you side with the administration? Well, he was between a rock and a hard place. He could not be the only person, and it was a unanimous vote. And then the narrative became we impose. He voted for it. His name is Bruce Haynes. The record shows. Impose. Not in a position. They said the water council, the university highest governing body, to deliberate. Council met in December, the council said, this is what we can afford. Here is a little known factoid. Every time we do a base salary increase, the housing allowance goes up 20%. So we've got to worry not only what we can afford in the base salary, but what is triggered in those allowances. University of Guyana has housing allowance, transportation allowance, a whole bunch of allowances. The council endorsed what the Finance and General Purpose Committee said. But the Finance and General Purpose Committee said, we endorse it without prejudice to any continuing negotiation. So we said, let's continue to talk. They say they want to see the books. We provide them all the data. Even though the data show we can't afford, they ask for a 9 and a 10%. We said we can't afford 9 and 10%. All we can afford is 3-4%. And so started the protests. We met with the Ministry of Labor. The Ministry of Labor said, well, in the context of not having a collective bargaining agreement, you've got to follow the laws of Guyana that says, if you have an industrial dispute, it's got to be bilateral, conciliation, in arbitration. And while you're doing that, you can't have any strikes and protests. They didn't want that. Matter of fact, today they had 12 people were picketing. Even though the Ministry of Labor sent them a letter yesterday saying that you are precluded from industrial action, you have to talk. So where it stands right now is that after January of this year, when we showed them the books and said there is no possibility, the fiscal space is not there for 9 and 10%. Let's talk about 2019. My worry is that 2019 will have to build on 2018. If we can't afford anything but 3 or 4%, how are we going to find 9 and 10%? And then when 2019 conversation comes, you're going to want 10 and 11%. So the Pro-Chancellor, Major General Retired Joseph Singh, established a panel, Union Administration Council members. One collective meeting where he proposed a joint statement. They said they wanted a joint statement. That has fallen apart. So the Pro-Chancellor put out a statement yesterday saying that efforts on his part and the Council's part to bring some consensus have fallen apart, and they are now supporting the Vice Chancellor's approach for conciliation. I hope that good sense prevails and people recognize that it is not helping for you to go protesting. You got to sit down. When you go protest, the protest doesn't give you the 9 or 10%, even 1%. You've got to come back and have the conversation. They want an audit. I said, fine, let's have the audit. The audit will show we don't have the ability for a 9 and 10%. So where it stands right now is we've turned the matter over to the Ministry of Labor for conciliation. We'll see what the ministry is able to do, but I'm hoping that good sense prevails. But here's the reality. I am thankful that most of the staff, academic and administrative, are doing their job. You have a union with a pretend membership. Most of the people see the wisdom of the progress we're making and see the wisdom of only being able to offer something that you can afford. Here's the reality for 2019. The budget from the government of Guyana to the University of Guyana is 42% less than the request. So we're right now trying to manage 42% less than the requested. So you're going to come and ask for 8 and 9% for last year. In the context of a fiscal space for this year, which we already know, I hope that wisdom prevails. Of course, my contract comes to an end in a few months. There is a campaign now to get rid of Griffith. It's part of it today. Griffith must go. But I've expressed my interest in a new contract. We shall see what happens. But I will not be the Vice Chancellor. Well, we talk about that offline. So I think what I want to do is to offer the opportunity for, in putting this program together, the organization, which is headed by Alison Sneed, the alumni and friends of the University of Guyana, were quite instrumental in getting the Vice Chancellor here for this conversation. And so I think Alison, I wanted to give Alison an opportunity to say a few closing words and perhaps help the Vice Chancellor in some way. I'm hoping. So, Alison, speak. Round of applause.
answer your question, sir. I am the president of the Alumni and Friends of the University of Guyana. That was Mr. Cataway. I wanted to say thank you to the Vice Chancellor for being here tonight and for sharing some of the information that you did. It's very reassuring to hear you say that you are going to seek a new contract. So we're going to be looking to you to give us some advice because we are going to stand by you, but we will need your advice on how best to proceed to continue supporting you. We support you as is now, and we will continue to do so. We support Eugene with resources, whether it be financial, giving mentorship, giving our time, giving equipment, as was mentioned earlier. We intend to continue to do so, and within the next few months, we look forward to being able to make some more monetary contributions to you. We thank you again for being here tonight. Some of our members are here. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about who we are and possibly joining us, feel free to talk to any people who are here, Dr. Blackman, Ms. Wharton, Karen Wharton, Leslie Stewart, Philip Smith back there, and the photographer are all members of the group. We also have some other education resource ambassadors here, Selden Collins, Mr. Burke. If you're interested in finding out what we do, please feel free to speak to any of us. Again, thank you for coming, and I thank you for your time.
Well, I just wanted, before we all go and enjoy the champagne back there, to say that I much appreciate the questions and comments. And I'll say something that I said when we had the first Education Resource and Values Conference. Motar is important, but guitar is better. And I would love to have the guitar being played with sweet melodies in your tangible expression of what the Motar says. One way to do it is to, as my staff said to me, don't let me bring back any of these books. One way to do it is to support the second diaspora conference in July. Another way to do it is to participate actively in the Alumni and Friends of the University of Guyana. And you don't have to be a graduate of the piece. You don't even have to be a Guyanese to be part of the Alumni and Friends. I want to thank Terrence and Meg Evers, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you. I won't say much more other than thank you. And be sure to take all of you.
On the plane ticket?
You what?
For the moment, the plane ticket. I've already signed on the fare reduction on the plane ticket.